All right, welcome everyone to the Infinite Expansion podcast, brought to you by the Last American Vagabond. I'm going to be your host, Tim, and got a pretty exciting show, I think, today. It's going to be a little lively, I think, especially we got an Aussie on board. We're going to be talking a little bit about Ethereum today, and I brought on a friend that I had met at Anarchapulco, who has done a lot of great work over at his media outlet, the Paradise Paradox. His name's Aaron, and I wanted to talk a little bit with him about Ethereum and kind of what it is, and kind of explore the subject a little bit more. It's very new, but it also has a lot of great promise, but could potentially have some obstacles. So I wanted to explore that subject with him, especially because he's been very involved in the cryptocurrency movement. So wanted to first talk about kind of just give readers an idea of what Ethereum is, and what we can do with it. Like, what are the applications for it? So I wanted to pop that question over to Aaron just to kind of explain Ethereum a little bit and what kind of applications are possible with it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. First, Ethereum is kind of like they call it like the evolution of blockchain. So, we can think of Bitcoin as being the first example of decentralized cryptocurrency ecosystem. There's a lot of layers to think about it like that. But Ethereum is not only like a new evolution; it's a totally new thing. I think we can't really. I want to make sure that you're not thinking of Ethereum like Bitcoin, because maybe as in the blockchain and the tokens and its nature of decentralization, it appears to be somewhat similar, like it's in the same group. But Ethereum, to quote everybody, they call it the world computer. And up until I didn't really grasp what that actually meant, because on the surface it does the same thing as Bitcoin, right? You transfer and it's on the exchanges and everything like that. But what makes Ethereum much different, or what Ethereum is, it actually processes, like, it is a decentralized computer that processes lines of code rather than just processes transactions. So if we think about a blockchain, like transactions A to B, and that is the ledger that's got all the transactions in place. We have transactions, but he actually has lines of code. So it's actually like a smart contract. Probably the best way to think about it is, if you think of Bitcoin as having like the ledger, that is the blockchain, then Ethereum its ledger is actually more like a hard drive, where it can actually process code line by line, and it can also jump back and refer to other lines of code, like a hard drive can. So I don't know, maybe I jumped in a little bit too technical to start off with, but it's important that we get that difference wrapped around our head a little bit.
Yeah, no, I kind of look at it like you said, a supercomputer. So like you said, Bitcoin is just more of a peer-to-peer money system, whereas Ethereum can process contracts. So we can take just like a normal contract and program it in, and then the blockchain can honor these contracts without the need for third-party litigation or anything like that. So we can actually, it can, like, for example, like a will. If I program a will into it, whenever that person dies and maybe it references a registry, well, then that will gets divvied out on the blockchain without the need to have third-party litigators to determine this and that on it. So it kind of, in a way, you can run. I kind of think of it as like self-regulating markets. So like markets that facilitate themselves using you program the rules of the business into the blockchain,
yep.
And then it facilitates the business or the market itself. And so you don't need a central management team. Maybe you have some developers who manage, like, in terms of keeping the system running, but it doesn't It doesn't manage the information flow or the payments of it. The blockchain does all that through the code that we put in, which is open source and anyone can see it.
Yep.
So it can self-manage, it can self-regulate markets and I don't know if regulate, yeah, self-manage markets and businesses without the need for a central force. I kind of look at it like that. I don't know if when you say the word smart contracts, but I kind of see it as like rules or structure that we program in that anyone can see and check to verify that it's properly. And they kind of, that way businesses facilitate themselves without the need for third parties or management teams or whatever.
Yeah, we throw these term smart contracts around because I mean that's what everyone says, but I mean you in this case the Ethereum machine, and there's no need for disputes or for questioning. It's like it just does what it's supposed to do, and there's no way you can change that. I mean it's in the system, and I think that's what. I look at it like this is almost, this is almost like a new way of communication, in groups, in like a collective way of communicating and processing everything that we do right now in a better way.
I think some people talk about it as like the law of the internet. In some way, it's like, I kind of agree with that. It's like a decentralized law structure because we're agreeing to a structure that we can all see. It's right there for us to see. And it creates these set of laws, which we all voluntarily agree to. So it's creating like a structure, like a decentralized law of the internet in some ways, especially if it gets more widely popular. What I think is really awesome about this, like one idea that's been proposed is kind of like a new Uber. I think it's called Arcade City. And basically it's a system where people offer rides, offer the car to give rides, as well as people wanting rides, and it facilitates this peer-to-peer ride sharing without the need for a central institution to manage it all. You just program how you want it to run in. So like, how people, like anyone who wants to give a ride, okay, it shows where they're at and where they're, what they're doing, where they're at and how much they're offering or whatever. And then you have people who want rides, and the program does all this and then so you don't have this third party taking cuts along the way. Like I said, maybe you have a very, very small fee for someone, for a group to maintain it, but you have no central controllers taking big cuts out of this and doing it. You have just a self-regulating market in a way. And it could really, if it goes well and blows up more, it would wipe Uber off it could wipe Uber off the market because it can just do it much cheaper.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to if you need to take a ride, and you can get it cheaper, well then you're going to go with the cheaper. I mean, considering the service is going to be the same, but everything's already the parameters are already in the system. So I mean, it's going to do, from a user point of view, what you're talking about, it's going to be exactly the same as Uber because that's what everybody's going to expect. Except we're going to cut off the management, which is pretty the heavy. I mean, I would expect to see minimum 30% cheaper. I mean, that's kind of what they're charging, right? So cheaper services. I mean, it's perfect.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it really, Ethereum has the ability to decentralize all types of business structures because now it's kind of like worker-owned companies that the company runs on I consider it mathematical formula that's programmed. Like it runs on rules, mathematics, and whatever we agree to. And it can decentralize any business structure really. And then it becomes worker-owned as opposed to top-down management-owned mostly. And that should be really exciting to anyone who wants to decentralize power, which I think anyone who's awake to what's going on would probably, I would hope, would be in favor of that. So in many ways, like it's really just getting started, in my opinion, on all the possibilities with Ethereum. I mean, you could have databases that house all this information and people, and it manages the database without someone being the filter, to filter the database. Like, we don't want this in there. Oh, we don't want that in there. The databases can become unfiltered, and so then people can filter through them themselves and look at it, as opposed to having some a trusted third party filter all this information. But anyways, I want to move on to the next subject. So with Ethereum, now there's a lot of talk. How is Ethereum going to interplay with Bitcoin? And they're both still very new in a way. I know Bitcoin's 7 years old, but it's still fairly new considering it's not most people have no idea still what it is. I mean, they might have heard the name, but most people don't know what it is. But would you consider them rivals? How do you think the interplay between Bitcoin and Ethereum is going to be moving forward?
Well, from my experience trading Ethereum and trading Bitcoin, you adopt this approach that they kind of do similar things. So of course they're rivals, but I don't think that's the way it should be, because although Bitcoin is in its number one spot with its own network effect, and it is, it's at the moment, 7 years, it's kind of stood the test of time in crypto years, because that's a long time, and it has grown and developed. I can't say it's developed itself much, but it has grown in the community. I know that the Bitcoin meetups that I go to single time and go to grow in size. So it's going to be number one, at least for a little bit longer. But where Ethereum comes into play, you really got to think about how do people get Ethereum, and what are they going to do with their Ethereum tokens once they have them. And really the only way you can do that is by being introduced to Bitcoin, getting Bitcoin, and then familiarizing yourself with the fact that there's another almost 700 other coins at the moment, and then decide to as well with Ether, then you need to buy it through Bitcoin. So something I gained from the last meetup in Mexico City is that the guys at Ethereum and then now with Slockit and the DAO, they know that without Bitcoin and all the work that Bitcoin's done, then there was no 150 million that they put together, because who's collecting fiat currency for this new investment or crowd fund?
Right. Yeah. Sorry for anyone out there listening. We're having a little technical difficulties here and there, but I think hopefully it can piece together through the slight interruption sometimes. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't necessarily look at them as yes and no rivals. The question is like, which one's going to be the super liquid payment system? Maybe Ethereum. It could be Bitcoin if they have to solve this scaling problem that's been, taking over the community for so long. We got too much back and forth fighting going on over the scaling, and the scaling's it's very important. So they have to figure out a way to scale, whether they want to go on chain, off chain. So it'll be interesting to see which one is the more liquid payment system. I kind of see like maybe Bitcoin is like the store of value, a greater store of value, as in kind of like the gold of cryptocurrency. It is a little bit more of a secure network. And while it does take longer to transact and stuff, it has built the infrastructure. I think a lot of people in the Ethereum are also probably pretty invested in Bitcoin as well. A lot of a lot of people that are overlapping in terms of involvement. So I don't think they want to just see Bitcoin just go by the wayside. It could be like, I think it could be like a store of value, and then the Ethereum. The thing is, like, the Ethereum is like you only use Ether to run the decentralized platform, and so in that regard, I don't know if you could buy like a Starbucks coffee with Ether necessarily, because the Ether is more used to use the network to run these like decentralized businesses and different things like that. So Bitcoin might be able to be used more effectively in kind of the mainstream applications, the restaurants or whatnot, whereas Ether is almost like the fuel if you want to use this new network that can do things far more efficiently than any other network kind of. So I kind of see like at least for, the next 5, 6, 7 years, I don't see them as any type of rivals. I actually see them, they need each other in a way. They need to somehow build a synergistic kind of companionship, because really they all want the same thing in both of the Ethereum and Bitcoin. This decentralizing power, peer-to-peer networking. So I hope that they can kind of work together. I kind of see them still as two different things. Like, you're using Ether for like kind of this new access to this Web 3.0, a new type of system, whereas the Bitcoin can be more like a store of value and used in the outside world, I guess the mainstream world more.
Yeah, I mean, they're completely different systems. They're completely different tokens. I mean, this is something that we need to stress. You can't get them both mixed up. And I think as long as Bitcoin gets their act together and resolves this issue, or, I mean, maybe they don't need to resolve. Maybe they just decide we're going to stick with Bitcoin the way it is. I think ETH is going to eventually facilitate Bitcoin payments, whether the Ether does the contract part, and then but the actual payment token will be Bitcoin, or will be something else, or whatever else it's going to be. But I think for the crypto space, Ethereum and what they're doing right now is the most important step in setting up actual infrastructure. Because, I mean, I've been hanging out with crypto heads for years, and ever since I found out about it, like, just when Bitcoin took its first big jump back end of 2013 and hit the 1,000, that was insane. And of course, it took over my whole life. At that point, it was like, we're talking about smart interactions, and we're going to pay everything with this, and payment systems, and I'm looking for jobs in how am I going to set up, like, this is the future. Like, I need to get into this. I put my university studies on hold for a little bit. Like, it took over my life. But now, what we've been talking about then, now with Ethereum, and that's a big change up. So I hope Bitcoin works itself out, because Bitcoin's kind of like what got everyone involved in the first place. But Ethereum's going to now build these internet superhighways that we've been waiting for. Yeah,
I think that's a good analogy in a way. I still think Bitcoin is going to be like, they're already making, I think it's called, I wrote it down in my notes here. Where's it at? BTC Relay. And it's a way of, it's like a side chain that links in Ethereum with the Bitcoin network. And so you can use smart contracts on Ethereum and two-way peg the side chain in to the Bitcoin network. And so, yeah, there is now, Bitcoin's developing its own kind of smart contract system called Rootstock.
Yeah,
we'll see if that's like they're trying to rival and take over that. So that'll be interesting to see what happens between those two. But I would hope that they can build. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that Bitcoin might eventually do what ETH is going to be doing now. But I don't know. What do you personally? I think I'd probably rather ask you the question. Do you think there's point in setting up so many side chains or these side chains projects when we're looking at Ether, like Ether from like its nuts and bolts, it's going to be able to process. It's a virtual machine. It's a computer compared to trying to set up a side chain that can process on the side of something else.
I think though that Bitcoin will need sometimes it will need side chains. I'm in favor of on scale, bigger block size or something it needs to process transactions faster. But I think eventually it will need a side chain to facilitate more payments quicker, especially if more people, especially like micro payments and small payments. So that way people can use it in small amounts, it doesn't clog the bigger blockchain. I think it will need to do this regardless of the Ethereum plays or not. I kind of see Bitcoin more the financial side of. I kind of see Bitcoin more of financial stores of value and more in the finance side, maybe even like investing and stuff, and then Ethereum more as the network that that businesses operate together on. It's like a global network that they all interact with each other on using Ether, but Bitcoin is going to play a role in kind of an asset that people will use to invest and to hold money in, and they'll be transacting still. It'll be like almost like I know we don't like banks, and maybe not the best now, but banks trading Bitcoin back and forth, or the big players trading Bitcoin back and forth, and then all more liquid Ethereum is using, and more of or maybe it's like the businesses using Ethereum to operate more, and then you have Bitcoin kind of as this outside payment system in a way. I don't know. I think they're both going to be players, along with other things. But yeah, I hope we don't get into this like competitive, like this like, oh, we're trying to take over Ethereum or we're trying to take over Bitcoin. I hope they work synergistically together, because really we're all after the same thing. We're all in the same camp. We can't let these little differences divide us away, because we're going to win united.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we're all fighting for freedom, open communication, sound money, and to rid corruption. I didn't. Yeah, I mean, to come back to the original question, I don't see Bitcoin as a rival to Ethereum. Maybe Rootstock is more of a rival to Ethereum, but I think that the world's big enough for all the players. And jumping back to Bitcoin being the gold of crypto, I mean, I like that idea from the start. It just kind of sounds cool and heavy. And I think if Bitcoin doesn't get their act together, then it will be the gold of crypto. In the respect, the same way that we use gold now. It's like some people hold it as a store of value, as an asset class.
It's like a hedge.
Yeah, but we don't go buy groceries with gold. So why would you want to buy groceries with Bitcoin? We could. I mean, we probably can now. But I think if the ecosystems all join together and we get bigger, there's probably better ways of doing it. But I mean, I'm one of those guys that hope Bitcoin really does overshoot moon and become so valuable that it's not something that we're going to be doing all these micro payments, which means you probably won't need to make sure that it has this ability to process a huge amount of transactions. But then on the other hand, if it doesn't get itself together and it fails, and the price doesn't rise, I think people are still going to collect them. There's only 21 million of them, and I say there's probably a big majority that's been lost. So who it's going to be special to have a complete Bitcoin, like a whole Bitcoin at the end of the day, irrespective of how much they're worth. Just knowing that you were there on the first, you were there day one. You know what I mean? Like this is a complete change of era, and I've got my Bitcoin, so.
That's an interesting theory. I've never heard someone say it like that. It's almost like a relic or a keepsake in a way.
Well, it might be like some of those baseball cards we used to trade in primary school. It's like it didn't. What value did it really have? It depends at the time.
Right. Definitely. What do you now? Because this is all part of this kind of awakening movement of. It's so many movements combined. Truth movement, you could call it, freedom movement, decentralization movement, and they're all like getting at the same things of the world changing and giving power back to the people and getting truth and objective truth out there. Because a lot of people in the truth movement don't know a lot about cryptocurrencies. They don't participate a lot in the forums, and they don't understand a lot of it. But why do you think more people should care about this? Because I think this is such a big thing for people in the truth movement to start to understand. They think it's over technical, but really, you put your mind to it, you can understand it. Why do you think more people need to be paying attention to this field of crypto and this whole new networks, Ethereum and other stuff?
Yeah, I think the crux of this is that people don't understand money in the first place. If they did, then it's a no-brainer. You jump something else. Personally, when I realized how the banking system interacts with governments and how they interact with huge corporation and this partnership between the three levels of, private organization, government, and banking, and how that is not benefiting the human race at all. It was like, that's it, I'm out. And it's like, and then that's what started the whole, Bitcoin crypto understanding. Even though I had a light understanding of information technology, other than just an interest, it was like, this is a solution to take the power away from those that realistically don't know what they're doing. Because, why would you have to be pretty sick individuals to want to cage human beings, you know what I mean? And then you only have to read, and there's people in the world could just fix that. But they can't, and they won't, because of the world we live in, like the structures of society. It's not viable. Comparing maybe like first world countries to like the emerging economies or emerging economies, it's like, you see a lot of people that are, I've been in Mexico, so I see this every day. You see a lot of people that are trying to work. They're out in the street literally selling things that are worth 10 cents, and they need to do this X amount of time so they can eat and feed their family. That system doesn't work for them because the money's not there. Like the economics is there, the understanding's there, but they haven't come to Bitcoin yet because to get there, you know what I mean? Like, be caught up in truth movements, but we already know the truth. Like, once you know it, you know it. It's just a matter of how are we going to deliver these systems to people that really need them. And I think it's known in the communities that we've got, like, for example, the regulation that's now crushing Bitcoin exchanges and Bitcoin-based companies, like what happened in Australia. I think there was, 16 Bitcoin exchanges. The majority of them had their banking accounts frozen. So it's like, how can they even operate? And of course, these are pretty, young guys like us that are putting together these ideas, and we want to change the world. But then an old traditional system just puts the hammer on you, and that's game over. Being here in Mexico, I can see that's not the same case. And actually, there's very little regulation here in Mexico, and I think most of the exchanges are actually doing quite well. The trick is now is how do we deliver that to the people? And I think that's kind of the phase we're in now.
I think you're right on that. Like you said, the economics, there are a lot of places, but the money doesn't represent the value of what they're doing in the economies. I totally agree that no one knows money's the move at all. And I personally believe, and I think this is true, that the reason money is not money tool. It's that money doesn't represent the value that it should. And the value is so distorted in economies and what money how value is and what you put in. And I think Bitcoin these are now tools to change the money system. If you want to change the world, you've got to change the money system. And the way value is represented, you need sound money. And this is finally an amazing global tool. Okay, and I'm not saying it's a perfect tool. I think it needs many other systems to hedge them all together, make them a sound, just system, so that one is dominating. But if you want to change the world, you have to change the money system. And so people who just want to focus, everyone has their own niche. I understand people gotta change what they can. But I think you still have to be paying attention and getting involved in these new money systems. And Bitcoin isn't the only system. You could create your own local currency. You could create new blockchain currencies, maybe that operate in your city. Or there's lots of possibilities. But if you don't understand this new system, this is finally something that we can really change the world with. And I think if we don't get enough people who want decentralization involved in these new cryptocurrencies, we could risk them maybe being kind of cornered or hijacked down the line. Not to say that it's completely taken over, but maybe we see players come in that don't utilize them in the best way we can. And so I think in that way, we need people to keep getting involved in cryptos as a way to kind of hedge the other system. But if you just continue participating in these, fiat systems, then, well, you're just participating in a system that's not to your benefit.
Yeah, you're eventually just prolonging a system's use by date. And it is difficult to bring new people in because, I mean, there is a little bit of a learning curve that you need to understand. And not because it's difficult, because, it's a new way of, but I mean, recently I've got a couple of friends that are doing some international travel. And they're looking at, what travel card should I get? They got like international travel cards. And it's like, this is, okay, we need to have a coffee. You need to sit down with me and I'm going to show you how to get a Bitcoin Visa card. Because, I mean, what's going to happen when you're traveling through Europe and the next bank collapses, and then all of a sudden the ATMs don't have any money and there's no staff to reload them, and all you've got, I mean, you got your card with Bitcoin, but at least you have your Bitcoin. You know what I mean? You're not loaded with a currency that's going to be, and all of a sudden your purchasing power's destroyed, and the money that you thought you're going to have this this month-long trip around Europe, all of a sudden, you're looking to get a ticket home ASAP. That's a real application that I think we can pretty convince our friends to dive into.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that branches right into the next topic I wanted to talk about, is like, what do you think the obstacles that Ethereum's going to face going forward? And I guess you just alluded to right there. One of them is that, I guess that was in another topic, but what do you think some of the obstacles, I lost my train of thought there, but what do you think some of the obstacles you see Ethereum facing moving forward? Oh, besides, I was getting to the steep learning curve. That was what I was referring to. That's one of the big obstacles. It's hard for people to understand this stuff because it requires a little bit of thinking. And a lot of people, in my opinion, it's too much thinking for them. They want to just be told exactly what it is without having to do some critical thinking. They don't want to think about monetary systems too much. It's new. They're scared. They don't want to put their money in something they don't really fully understand. So what would you say some of the more other obstacles you see Ethereum and other cryptos facing?
Well, yeah, I think education and getting over that first click, that first transaction, from sending, and it might only be a few dollars, but I mean, you don't know how Bitcoin works, and you're gonna press send, and it's like, did I do this right? Is my address incorrectly? This 100-character long. It's like that's my transaction address. Did I not copy the last character? Like, you do go through all this. But I mean, this is, like you said, man, this is early stages of. It's still a little bit. I mentioned regulation. I think it's sad for countries that are trying to regulate. I mean, we should probably tell the listeners that we spoke for nearly an hour, so there's probably a few things that we threw out there beforehand. But yeah, like France, they want to ban Bitcoin. Go to Russia and use Bitcoin, they're going to throw you in jail. China was banning Bitcoin for a while, and then all of a sudden they said they're going to bring out their own cryptocurrency. And then if you follow in financial news, they're hoarding all this gold and silver, and they're talking about. I'm not sure if they did or they have pegged the Chinese yuan to gold. And it's like, yeah, we're looking at governments that are realizing that the money system might not be around, long term, and they need to look at how they're going to capitalize on Bitcoin. So I think this is a big challenge for all cryptos, because where you have governments that, or they want to stay in power, so they need to look at how they're going to do that. And if their financial system that's been helping them for so many years all of a sudden is trembling, and they don't know what's going to happen, and if there is some advisor, because the politicians, they don't know what's going on, but if there's an advisor that's smart enough to tune into these alternative media, to get ticked off to see what's actually happening and start doing a little bit of research, you don't have to do a lot to realize that the current isn't so robust that you'd think.
I think I lost you there for a second, but yeah, I totally agree that government is probably going to be one of the biggest obstacles, because how is this old system that wants to stay in power, that only is interested in keeping itself around, as any business or any government, how are they going to interact with a system that's really can make them obsolete? I think banks are even more scared than governments. Banks really risk becoming obsolete. We could have new forms of banks, kind of like banks that are decentralized with lots of people who put their money in, who invest, kind of like what the DAO is. You know, it's a venture capital fund where people actually have to put up real assets to invest in, as opposed to banks who can just create credit out of nothing and then collect your assets that you worked hard for. That's just a complete Ponzi scheme. It's just such a scam. So I think governments is going to be one of the biggest one in central banks. But I also see, one of the problems too is going to be scaling and in-group fighting. And I know, and this is something that Bitcoin knows all about, because once it starts to get bigger and you get more people, you're subject to infiltration. You're subject to people utilizing it in the wrong way, sabotaging each other. We know the government puts out tons of instigators. And so we have to really make sure that we can all get along in this ecosystem, as opposed to competing against each other in a way too much. I'm not saying competing builds innovation, but if we're doing it and then we start sabotaging each other and fighting so much that we're sacrificing something that we're building towards, we again can run into a lot of trouble. Bitcoin knows all about that, as I've said. So leaderless movements, while it's great, I'm all for it. There's just challenges with building consensus and building communal structures and ecosystems require communal actions in a way. And so we need to all voluntarily come together, as opposed to, fighting amongst each other too much. I know it doesn't seem like that's happening in Ethereum yet, but that as it scales, it's definitely open to that. And I think the last point I wanted to make on that too is we have to make sure that people, say, because I know some of the big boys in finance are getting involved in Ethereum or slowly. We have to make sure that, okay, say they build these private blockchains that operate in Ethereum, and then all the people, the sheeple, just all go right into their system. This could be a way for a cashless society to come about. They build private blockchains. Everyone keeps their money. Like, they do it behind the scenes, and they turn everything digital for their customers. And they're operating on a blockchain for more efficient, but it's a private blockchain. And then everyone just continues using the same credit cards and same things. And people are going to actually have to go into new systems. They're going to have to take their money out of old systems into new. And when people aren't awake enough to do that at the moment, that could be a way they could utilize the system to their own advantage.
I think there'll be a lot of people that are going to do it. And I think we definitely haven't hit the tipping point, and I have no idea how far that is away. That's big players in bank and blockchain. And look at this, like there's something weird happening, because anybody in any of the big players could just, 8 trillion market cap, roughly, of Bitcoin, it really that much money to like the bigger traditional systems that are in place. It's like, why can't they just go and buy the whole Bitcoin out? But then you look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin. Everyone that's got Bitcoin they're not all going to sell at the same time. It's not like someone can just buy out Bitcoin like it's a company or something. There's no leader of Bitcoin saying, okay, yeah, we had our fun. Now it's time to let someone else drive and just give it all away.
That's true. You could buy the mining. That you could centralize all the mining and buy all the mining facilities. Potentially, that's just a possibility.
Yeah, even that would be a challenge. I think if someone decided one day, from one day to the next, that's it. I need to get into Bitcoin, which I think most of us did. Effect will that have? I think this is why the banks, if some of them are doing something sneaky like that, and growing and relabel the mining pool and it's It's really hard to say, because then on the other hand, you got media. Like, media is not helping any side of Bitcoin. Every time that a exchange is hacked, then all of a sudden Bitcoin's dead again. Like, I don't know how many times Bitcoin died in the last couple of years, but the media's always finished. And so challenges and in the attacks, it's and then you got like all the banks that are in, but they're not in, but they're interested, but they're not doing anything, and then they come out with their own type. I think the true Bitcoin is that Bitcoin belongs sold in Bitcoin, which is unfortunate when someone's hacked and the Bitcoins are gone. But if you've got Bitcoin, it's your money. It's not something that you're depending on decisions or fiscal policy, monetary policy. Like, you're not depending on how much it's going to be worth in the future based on what the guys in government feel like doing that day. The banks are going to risk either. It's like Bitcoin it's open, free market thing. And, at the moment we're using it as a financial tool, which I think has been helpful for a lot of people. But what comes of that, it's like, I don't think anybody really knows. Timing's good though. I mean, every other system's kind of legs, which I think is going to possibly buy time for Bitcoin. Because soon as people realize that their money, it's just a matter of, it's an education thing. When people realize that their money's not what they thought it was, then they're going to look at something else. And hopefully Bitcoin's still around to what. And I know that the banks are going to have something that's going to look like it, and it's going to pretty bamboozle a lot of people. They're probably just going to, man, like you said, just keep doing what they're doing, or they're just going to keep following the bank, because at the end of the day, what is it? It's just a big logo that has some kind of trust, because that's what Dad did, and that's what his dad did.
Yeah,
so it's scary.
That's a good point right there. Yeah, people are just gonna do what they always done, and they're gonna be like, they're gonna offer some, we'll give you this extra little fee off. It's like a little treat. If you come with us and stay with us, but people's expectations are just like, they don't understand. Would you want this little treat, or you want to really change the system? And hopefully people will, go into these new systems. But I just have one last question to wrap it up here. We're having a little, unfortunately, I've been having a little technical difficulties with your connection over there. But
I've been having this for months. It's terrible.
Yeah. Anyways, what do you think? I just want to do like a little speculation on the future here. How do you think systems are going to look in 10 years? Like, how do you think it's going to go moving forward? What do you see happening? I know you already alluded to it a little bit, the old system dying and this new system coming to take its place. What do you see happening moving forward here in the next maybe 10 years between, Ethereum, Bitcoin, just the financial system in general?
Okay. We didn't mention it in this about the decentralized autonomous organizations, but I think that's a big key into what's going to happen in the future, because what government's in place to do is something that we can see that they're not trusted to do anymore. So maybe in the future, if there's a way where people can actually vote and know their votes can count towards something, or if there's a way that we can actually decide as a collective group rather than waiting for a round table in some building that no one's ever heard of before to decide on what the decisions need to be for the place or the country or state or whatever, then I think that's going to be the changing factor when people can really implement some kind of democratic environment. But a lot needs to happen between now and then. I think 10 years is kind of like a long shot. I think a lot could happen in 1 year or 2 years. Just looking at what happened in Iceland when they overthrew the banking system and actually started prosecuting bankers for what they've done, which I know there's a lot of media blackout on that. I don't think anybody really knows what happened exactly in Iceland. So I think we're going to see more decentralized organizations, and I think we're going to see smaller governments, because we're not going to put up with it anymore if the collective can get their voice together.
Yeah, I hope so. I obviously worry sometimes because there's still so many people that are asleep, but there's a lot of people waking up. And I think I look at it like this: if we, as this smaller community, can build these infrastructures that literally make the other ones obsolete, we could get enough people awoken to this new system and get them to buy in, we're going to grow. We could grow large enough where they can't really shut us down at that point. But if we don't get more people involved, then we're prone to be kind of attacked by the government. As like, oh, look at these guys, these threats, these anarchists, they want to, overthrow the system. But if we wake enough people up, get more people involved, we'll become too large for them to really take over. And we can almost make the other side obsolete. But I think as far as this new financial paradigm, the financial system's changing. The old system is this, it just inflated the bubble so big it's going to pop. And the question is, are we going to buy into their solution, or are we going to create this new solution? I'm praying that we build this new solution. People don't buy into this old one. Oh, save us, government! You created the problem, but you can save us. That's just a bunch of baloney. I hope that people will buy into this new system. I think this new system is going to be, a hedged together system with many payment systems, many stores of value. I think precious metals are going to play into that. I think cryptos, Bitcoin, Ethereum, even a few more are going to play into that. I think commodities and real estate and hard assets are going to play into that. How can they not? They're resources. And I think that even fiat is going to maybe play into this. I could see government still issuing bonds or a national currency, but that is hedged together. But the other ones that aren't controlled, that allow the market to dictate, well, how the government's not going to be able to compete with their system of money if they aren't effective and aren't playing by the just rules and aren't efficient. And so in that regard, they're kind of they're put in their place. So if they don't produce, then they're going to be made obsolete. So now, as long as I'm not someone who's like totally against national currency, but I'm against one that is hedged together and just. And so if they're not efficient and they don't work properly, well, then they're obsolete. And so I'm hoping that these many systems will all kind of come together into one system, and we can use different currencies for different things.
Totally.
In a way, not a whole, well, I got to use fiat for everything. And I think hopefully this will scale down federal governments big time. Because really, like, Ethereum is like a new government, because if you have all these structures with all these smart contracts that create rules, well, you're kind of creating a new government-ish type system, whether you want to call it that or not. It's kind of like new governments and new economies. And so these are like global economies. It's kind of part of in my opinion, globalization is going to happen regardless. It's just, what form will it take? Will it take a decentralized market form, or it will take a centralized top-down control form? And because us becoming more global and communicating and traveling and reducing barriers is great. It's just, what form will that take? And I'm hoping that these cryptocurrencies and these other systems of payment will all come together and kind of build one strong fabric. So that's what I hope to see, at least.
Yeah, I think we're definitely on the way, based on the last couple years of being solid in just getting more information out about the way banks work. Getting more, I think now we're starting to see more truth in, it's starting to creep through in media, because with what happened with Puerto Rico, it's like, how can this happen? It's kind of idea. If governments go bankrupt, then who's going to pay them? And they'll look for another job like everyone else. And I think it's just a matter of keep sharing information and educating their own friends, because really it comes down to your own individual experience, your own individual world. I know a lot of people around me have chosen to opt out, and now that I'm in Mexico, I can see that. I mean, this is what Mexico is called a broken state. It's like government here doesn't work, and it's not like, you know, people are fooled. Every single person on the street knows that the government is only there to rob you and has no actual true function of value. So it's just a matter of getting something to people that need that, or getting uncomfortable. I know most of my family, friends, and associates in Australia, they're all too comfortable. They're never going to want to get out of their system. Why would they? Everything's nice. But when things start to hurt a little bit, that's when it's like, if you're smart, then you're going to start, you know, getting out of the pot of hot water. You're going to think about something like, what's going on here? And I mean, half an hour on YouTube, you've got a playlist 10 hours long of information on, you know, the truth of government and economics and the banking system. And then, you know, then you got all the other conspiracy theories. If if that hasn't woken you up yet, it's like the information's there. It's just a matter of making people think about it, or
aware of the tools that are right there in front of them.
Exactly, because if they don't, it's going to be too late, and maybe a banking collapse is what we need.
I actually think you're right on that. I think we're going to be in a really important position coming, where the old financial system is going to collapse, and a lot of people are going to wake up like, whoa, what the fuck's going on? The question is, okay, are we going to have our infrastructure in place to steer them in this new direction, as opposed to going right back into this new system by the same players? I think we're going to have such a great opportunity to do that, because a lot of people are going to be shaken awake. The system is going to have to give. It can't keep going on with these debt levels like this, and it's cracking big time. So I think we're going to have a big opportunity coming up to steer people into these new systems. They're going to be open to this new knowledge like they haven't been before. So I hope we take advantage of that. But yeah, I wanted to wrap it up there. For anyone not familiar with your work, Aaron, where can the viewers go to find your work?
Well, myself and Kurt Robinson, we have a podcast at www.theparadiseparadox.com. And we're also we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. Probably best to go to the website and sign up to the newsletter there to keep up to date with everything. We cover all this stuff, you know, not from a technical point of view, but you know, we like to keep more social in our topics, and you know, the occasional conspiracy theory just for fun.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone to check it out, because what you guys do well is, besides providing good information, is you keep it fun. You guys, I've lived with Aussies for years. The humor is so great, and so I think you guys bring a humor aspect that you don't always see in other alternative media. Sometimes it can get too serious, and we got to learn sometimes to laugh and to joke about some of these topics. And so I think you guys do a really good job of that. So I hope people will go and check out some of that. But anyways, wanted to wrap that up. Thanks anyone who is listening. Thanks, Aaron, for your information. That was great. And I hope people will go and check out some of your work. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a lot more stuff coming your way. Once again, thanks, and have a good day.